The bushveld region south of the Limpopo River is abruptly broken by the looming quartzites of an isolated barrier mountain range. It is known as the Soutpansberg, the Salt Pan Mountain, which refers to a large saline deposit at its northwesternmost point. The Greater Soutpansberg, with its outliers, covers an area of almost 7,000 square kilometers, its principal range stretching from east to west for some 210 kilometers. The highest peak, a sentinel known as Lejuma, rises to 1,747 meters above sea level. The Blouberg to the west dominates the horizon, rising over 300 meters higher than Lejuma. The Soutpansberg is no ordinary mountain range. Here is a diversity of animal and plant life that makes it one of the richest environments in southern Africa, and certainly warrants its being granted the status of Biosphere Reserve, a UNESCO-recognized development model which protects environmentally vulnerable core areas and buffer zones, while encouraging the sustainable use of natural resources to the benefit of surrounding communities. To go back to the beginning, it was in fact some 1,800 million years before the present that the Soutpansberg started its life as a depositional basin between two major crustal blocks. But only in the past 60 million years or so, following deposition, erosion, block faulting and tilting to the north, has it taken on the form that we see today. The rocks are predominantly quartzites, and fortunately there is little in the way of minerals to attract the commercial developers. The Greater Soutpansberg includes the outlying massif of the Blouberg and the adjoining majestic landscape of the Makubeng Plateau to the west. And to the northeast the hills known as Chiendeulu, Dambali, and Chiongani. Within this highland complex, thanks to a varied rainfall distribution, a vegetation mosaic of great diversity has evolved. The mountain has a great impact on the distribution of rainfall and mist. The southeastern flanks are the first to benefit from the arrival of the summer rains. Interbeni forest may reap as much as 2,000 millimeters each year, while in the west it may drop to 340 millimeters. The northern slopes lie in the rain shadow and are much drier, a fact witnessed to by different vegetation growth, and dominated by that flagship of giant trees, the baobab. Contrast this with the mist-belt forest pockets on the southern slopes. These remnant forests, such as Luande, Interbeni, and Tatovondu, are unique in South Africa, not only because of their tree diversity, but also as shelters for an unbelievably rich avifauna. More than 594 tree species grow on the slopes of the Soutpansberg, and are home to birds such as the African broadbill and the bathawk, crowned eagle and crested guinea fowl. The influence of the frequent mists is greater than one might expect. Within the Interbeni Forest Reserve, precipitation from the mists increases the 2,000 millimeter annual rainfall by up to 1,400 millimeters.
The Forests in this area are very, very important. They are part of the greater archipelago of forests in southern Africa, in fact throughout Africa. They form a very important link from the Chimani-Mani forests that come down from the north to the forests through the mist-belt forest through to Mpumalanga, down the Drakensberg into Knysna. Some of the species that occur here only found here in north, other species that occur here only found here in south, so it's a very important overlap area for forest biodiversity.
Because the forests of the Soutpansberg differ from those in other areas of South Africa, they require special conservation efforts. In the east of the range, most of these forest blocks are several hundred hectares in extent. Forests in the western range are small and fragmented, making them vulnerable to runaway fires. However, fire is not the major threat to these forest patches, as they are highly sensitive to other disturbances, such as overgrazing or unseasonal burning of wetlands in their catchments, disturbance of forest margins, and removal of dead wood. It should be remembered that these indigenous forests are not just of aesthetic value, but they also serve as an important component of the water catchment, prevent soil erosion, and provide habitats for many animal species that would otherwise not be able to survive on the mountain. Most of these forests have lost their giant yellowwoods and other hardwoods to early European settlers and their restless double-handed saws. Old saw pits are to be found wherever these majestic trees were located. Some fine yellowwoods, however, did elude the saw and axe men. Consider that the Soutpansberg makes up less than 1% of South Africa's surface area, yet growing here are 48% of all our flowering plant genera. 33 species of plant occur only here and nowhere else on Earth.
The Soutpansberg is not only noted as a centre of endemism, but also as a centre of high biodiversity. At present, there are approximately 3,000 vascular plant species known for the Soutpansberg, belonging to 1,066 vascular plant genera.
The often mist-shrouded summits and high valleys, especially in the west, support extensive areas of grassland. Here on the peaks and ridges are plant species which we commonly only expect to find in the Cape heathland, such as proteas, ericas, and everlastings. On the south-facing slopes, the tree euphorbias often form dense thickets. Fortunately, in the past, these and many unusual plants, such as the endemic cycads found on Leshiba, as well as the Mujaji cycad, did not attract the attention of early settlers. An amazing 510 species of bird have been recorded in the Greater Soutpansberg, 145 mammals, at least 116 reptiles, 44 different fish, and a rapidly growing inventory of spiders, including many species previously unknown to the scientific community. Consider that on one small property alone, Lejuma in the west, no fewer than 130 species of spider have been identified. Compare this with the 25,000 square kilometer Kruger National Park, with just 139 known species. Here also is a veritable treasure trove of butterflies, whilst other invertebrate groups remain unstudied, and there is no doubt that many will not have been described. This vast biodiversity makes the Soutpansberg one of Africa's most important faunal and floral hotspots. Here we find endemics and rarities, long isolated populations, and the bizarre. This range offers one of the best locations to view South Africa's rarest primate, the Samango monkey. Here are red duiker and giant rat, pangolin and leopard. The many reserves and privately owned game parks have reintroduced a number of species that once roamed freely throughout the Greater Soutpansberg. Once more elephant, square-lipped rhinoceros, sable antelope, plain zebra and giraffe roam the area of their ancestors. One must not, of course, forget those true flying mammals, the bats. No complete inventory has been compiled on these aerial masters in the Greater Soutpansberg, but at least 36 species are known. The majority are the smaller insect eaters, but the most visible are the large fruit-eating bats. Here you find the tree-roosting epauletted bats, best known for their nighttime singing. The Egyptian fruit bat, a cave rooster, is known from only one location, but certainly has other caves in use. South Africa's largest Cape vulture breeding colony is located on the sheer cliffs of the Blouberg. On Aasvoorberg in the western Soutpansberg, there is a smaller yet significant colony of these giant scavenging birds. A seriously threatened species, this vulture has seen a near catastrophic decline in its numbers. It has been estimated that a quarter of the total population of Cape vultures in South Africa calls the Greater Soutpansberg home. The Soutpansberg has a remarkable archaeological and cultural diversity, and many different peoples occupied the area continuously up to the arrival of the first European settlers. Evidence of many cultures and ages is located here. Very little archaeological exploration has been undertaken in the area, but evidence there is aplenty. This is in the form of stone tools, rock structures, iron foundry sites, and most visibly, paintings and petroglyphs in rock shelters created by Bushman hunter-gatherers, Kwekwene herders, and North Sotho agriculturalists and cattle keepers. Recent research programs have located and documented some 800 such sites in the Greater Soutpansberg area. The largest spoor rock engraving site in South Africa is also found here. Lake Fundutsi in the northeast is the spiritual focal point of the Venda Nation. This, South Africa's only permanent inland lake, was formed by a massive rockfall that blocked the flow of the Mutali River. It is still today an important holy place, but is increasingly under threat as traditions are lost and improved access brings more people to settle in the hills along its shores. The advent of the first settlers of European descent after 1820 was to bring great changes to the area, yet the indigenous peoples retained much of their law and traditions. The greatest changes to the environment resulted from the establishment of commercial farming practices, ranging from cultivation to cattle raising. Although modified by hundreds of years of human settlement, the Western Range does remain relatively pristine. The same cannot be said for the better watered and fertile soils of the East. Unfortunately, not all is well on and around the Soutpansberg, and it is of both national and international concern that this rich natural and cultural heritage be preserved. What are the problems that face this African hotspot? They are many and varied. Pressures from woodcutting, commercial plantations, exotic plant invaders, and to a certain extent the collection of medicinal plants continue to nibble away at these unique habitats.
Another important conservation issue in this area is the extensive exploitation of kiat, Pterocarpus angulensis, and pod mahogany, Afzelia quinensis up in northeastern Venda. There's very little being done to control that. From time to time people get brought to book.
Commercial agriculture in the form of subtropical fruit and nut orchards requires that vast tracts of land be cleared of their natural vegetation. Extensive tea estates clothe hillsides and foothills at 2 locations. Pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides are known to have major impacts on the environment, but here they are barely studied, and the effects are not extensively documented. These orchards require great quantities of water. Rivers such as the Levubu, fed from the mountain catchment, which is already depleted by exotic plantations, can no longer keep pace with the demand. Freshwater organisms retreat as the rivers and streams dry out during the parched months. Commercial forestry has also been responsible for displacing much natural growth on the southern slopes. This monoculture is unsuitable for most of the creatures that rely on indigenous forests, heathlands, and grassy valleys for their existence. In the east, subsistence agriculture and overgrazing has denuded the slopes, exposing them to severe erosion, in places to the point where they may not recover. Throughout the range, exotic plants such as bugtree, Mauritius thorn, guava, and lantana are rapidly fingering their way into formerly pristine areas. Increasing and maintaining the protection for this range is essential, as it serves as a sponge for the water supply required by the burgeoning human population on its flanks and surrounding plains.
Another aspect which can really go a long way in terms of conserving indigenous plants is the issue of sacred forests. A specific sacred forest can belong to a specific clan, and it is only some individual within that clan that have the rights to visit such an area. And sometimes they may only visit it under specific ceremonies. And in such areas, you find that because collection of medicinal plants or collection even of firewood is prohibited, it therefore leaves such areas in good state.
Remove vegetation, and water supply diminishes to the economically important subtropical fruit and nut orchards, as well as to the communities and industries further afield. If these changes and modifications to the natural environment continue to take place, the agricultural and tourist economies will falter and die. Greater Soutpansberg deserves better. It is time now to ensure that this magnificent mountain range obtains the maximum protection and is preserved for the generations to come.
Now, nobody imagines that one can conserve biodiversity without, at the same time, ensuring that communities dependent on natural areas for their survival are developed at the same time. So UNESCO places the nomination of an area as a Biosphere Reserve squarely in the context of a sustainable development program for an entire area. Now, we believe very strongly that that is the only long-term solution for the Soutpansberg. It's the only way that we will be able to ensure the conservation of this exceptional biodiversity and cultural heritage, and at the same time to develop sustainably people dependent on this natural heritage for their survival.
To protect this area of great natural beauty and bounty, efforts now being made by the Limpopo government, together with local communities, to have it declared a Biosphere Reserve should be supported and encouraged by all those who value our natural and cultural heritage.